Hello, you're listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, and I'm Paul Mackey. I certainly had planned to release this sooner, but I went down to help my parents as my dad had a heart valve replaced, and we're getting ready to spend a week in Boston. So while the preceding gap was unpredictable, I can confidently say the next release will be delayed as well. Since I do want this out before we travel, I'd better wrap up the intro and start talking about the Rockford Files. Season 1, Episode 20, The 4-Pound Brick, originally aired February 21st, 1975. That day of note, John Mitchell, H.R. Haldeman, and John Ehrlichman were sentenced to 2.5 to 8 years for conspiracy and obstruction of justice for their roles in the Watergate scandal. In 1977, the sentences were commuted to 1 to 4 years. Ehrlichman and Haldeman served 18 months, Mitchell 19 months. In music, number 1 in the U.S. was Pick Up the Pieces by the Average White Band, while in the UK, Make Me Smile, Come Up and See Me by Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel was at the top. The Towering Inferno remained number 1 at the box office. A brief summary of the episode. This episode begins at a cop's funeral. Rocky is in attendance, as is Lieutenant Deal. Later, the late Dave Banning's mother, Kate, insists his death was no accident. The car was just fixed, the brakes were just fine. Dave was worried for 2 weeks ahead of the accident. Rocky suggests his son, Jim, could look into it because of his side gig as a PI. It seems Rocky has told all his friends Jim works trucking for him. Rocky tries to sell Jim on looking into Dave's death, and Jim says he could give him a rate cut. Rocky was angling for free of charge. When the two of them arrive at Kate's house, they don't notice 2 guys watching the house. These heavies take note of Jim, identifying Rocky as being at the funeral earlier. The goons follow them to the police station, and when Jim goes in, one of them takes down his plate number, speculating whether Jim might be a cop. Jim asks Becker about Dave Banning's death, and Becker says a dead cop gets the full-service investigation if anything seems off. He points out that his partner, Sergeant Wilson, working at a nearby desk, not fretting about the case. His fiancée says he was worried about a phone call. He agreed to meet someone at the Greek amphitheater, the usual place. Rockford goes there and finds a single cartridge there. Back home, he weighs the powder and determines it has a light load of powder inside. And the cops are the only ones who do it that way. Jim stakes out the Greek to see if anyone shows up there and sees Dave's partner, Wilson, take an envelope off a couple of goons. Jim enlists Angel, and the two of them hit the streets asking around about whether Banning and Wilson were on the take. The questions don't go unnoticed, and a goon phones up the boss, Maury, who says to take Rockford out. Angel is directing Rockford to his place when Jim notices the tail. The bongos kick in, and we get a real chase scene. Or maybe that's a cowbell. Jim is used to trying to shake a tail, but Angel looks like he's going green. Jim evades them, going off the road, and Angel storms off, possibly having soiled himself, and wants nothing more to do with the whole situation. Jim and Rocky go to Kate to find out what she wants next. She wants them to go forward. It may sting that Dave may have been crooked, but she figures if he was on the take, someone might have wanted to kill him over it to cover it up, so they should go to the cops about it. Becker makes Jim talk to Deal about the whole thing, and Jim gets nothing but pushback. In fact, as he goes out to report what he was told to Rocky, 2 officers approach him to suggest they can find something to hang on him, jeopardize his PI license, and put him away for a bit if he should continue to pursue the investigation. Jim stakes out Wilson and follows him that night. In a quiet park, Wilson meets some guys and takes another envelope. Rockford follows the guys, and they return to the precinct, entering a door marked Detectives Only. As he considers his options, the 2 heavies from earlier enter his car. They take him to Maury, the boss, and he tells them to take Jim away as Wilson arrives. He conducts the transaction for a 4-pound brick of hash. He asks a few leading questions, and then as they finish the handoff, they jump him and find he's wearing a wire. Deal is alerted that the signal stopped and sends in the cops. Meanwhile, Maury puts Wilson in with Rockford, saying they are the hostages. The 3 crooks load them into a car and try to get out of there, and they're chased down into the L.A. River Channel where they crash, and Rockford and Wilson disarm and overpower them. Back at the trailer, Becker explains that Dave was clean, working undercover when he found out Wilson was running drugs, and that after Dave's death, Internal Affairs made Wilson work for them. Rockford had made everyone involved very nervous that he would blow the bust. Then, Rocky and Kate argue over the bill and finally agree to split it. Each of them then has a one-on-one with Jim, explaining how they can't pay him just now, and Becker and Rockford share a good old-fashioned pre-credits freeze-frame laugh.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
This is Shirley from the bank. The answers are no, no, and yes. No, we won't loan you money. No, we won't accept any co-signers. And yes, your account's overdrawn. I get off at 4:30.
Who is? As far as I can tell, this is the first episode in which Stuart Margolin is credited on screen with the text Stuart Margolin as Angel. At this point, he'd appeared in both the pilot and the episode Counter Gambit, was an uncredited voice actor on the Answering Machine gag, and had directed the episode Caledonia It's Worth a Fortune. Stuart Margolin was born in Davenport, Iowa in 1940 and performed the role of Puck in a local theater performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream. However, he spent most of his teen years involved in mischief and class clown behavior rather than continuing formal performance. Texas public schools kicked him out and he went to a boarding reform school in Tennessee. Once in his 20s, he channeled much of those energies back into art once more, becoming an actor, songwriter, screenwriter, and director. He began acting for television in 1962 and worked regularly as a character actor throughout his career. He was part of the regular cast of Love American Style, appearing in 29 episodes of that series. In 1969, he wrote and co-produced an ABC television movie called The Ballad of Andy Crocker, which dealt with the issues of a veteran returning home from the war in Vietnam. In the 1971-1972 season, he appeared in Nichols, a Western, alongside James Garner, and sparked a lifelong friendship. Garner helped Margolin land the role of Angel in the pilot movie for the Rockford Files, and even when NBC reportedly didn't like him, Garner kept getting him added to episodes anyway. Stuart Margolin appeared in many episodes of the show and reprised the role in the later TV movies. He also directed several episodes and 2 of the TV movies. In the Emmys, Margolin went on to win 2 Best Supporting Actor awards for his work on this show, and was later nominated for his directing work on episodes of The Tracy Ullman Show and a daytime children's special, The Sweetest Gift. In the year 2000, he moved his family to British Columbia, living on an island in the Strait of Georgia for 22 years before his passing of pancreatic cancer at age 82. Totally 70s. I can't let the Totally 70s category go without mentioning the sequence with Jim and Angel meeting up with all of their street contacts. The cars, the full afros, and the bare bones clubs, everything screams 70s. However, I can't help but wonder if it veers a little into some latent racism with the cross-section of people they chose to depict. Artifactoids. The Greek Theater is an amphitheater in Griffith Park in Los Angeles. It was built in 1930, funded by the money in the will of Griffith J. Griffith, the original donor of the parkland. It sat mostly unused in its first few decades and was a barracks during World War II. The seating capacity has fluctuated over the years, starting with 4,000 seats, then expanding to as many as 6,100 seats. Most recently, the capacity, including standing room, is listed at 5,900 people. In the early 1950s, a series of prominent tours by foreign dance companies, operas, and theater companies in mixed summer series served to boost Los Angeles as a center for the arts. These days, the theater is booked by Live Nation, Golden Voice, and the Niedermeyer Group, and is managed by venue management company SMG. The bulk of the time is scheduled by music concerts by popular artists. What worked in this episode? Stuart Margolin definitely earned his as Angel credit on screen in this episode. He was full of character and wit and was a real standout in the episode. Edith Atwater was a standout guesting as grieving mother Kate Banning as well. What didn't work? It did feel a little simple, a straight-down-the-middle PI stumbles on an undercover sting without knowing about it story. But who knows, maybe this is an early example of that trope? A cursory glance at tvtropes.com didn't really come up with anything. Their post on the episode didn't quite zero in on just what I'm talking about here. Next time, the Rockford Files Season 1, Episode 21, Just by Accident. Happy hunting! You've been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org. I guess I didn't know what a 4-pound brick might be because I grew up in the 80s, when the Colombians were conspiring to turn America metric with their kilos of cocaine.